I had what most people would call a perfect marriage with Kimberly. 5 years together, recently moved into our dream house, and we're even talking about starting a family soon. But everything changed when her three closest friends, Jessica, Amanda, and Tara, started having more influence on her life. They convinced her to test our relationship in a way that I never saw coming. And my reaction? It backfired so spectacularly that nobody expected what happened next. Let me know where you are watching from. Hit that like button and subscribe to hear how my response turned everything upside down. Kimberly and I first met during sophomore year of college at a mutual friend's birthday party. I still remember spotting her across the crowded apartment, laughing with such genuine joy that I could not help but be drawn to her. She wore a blue sundress and had this way of tucking her hair behind her ear when she was listening intently to someone. I gathered enough courage to introduce myself, and we ended up talking until 3 in the morning about everything from our childhood dreams to our favorite breakfast cereals. Our relationship faced its first major challenge just a year after dating when I received a job offer in another city 400 miles away. Many couples would have called it quits, but we committed to making long-distance work. For 12 months, we survived on weekend visits, nightly video calls, and surprise care packages. Looking back, that year apart actually strengthened our foundation because we had to prioritize communication over everything else. When I finally moved back, I proposed within 3 months. We had a small, intimate wedding ceremony in a local botanical garden with only 50 guests. Kimberly had initially wanted something larger after Jessica, one of her bridesmaids, insisted that we needed at least 200 guests and a grand venue. But in one of our first acts of united decision-making, we chose what felt right for us rather than what others expected. Our personalities complemented each other in ways that made our relationship work. I was always the more pragmatic one, approaching problems with logic and careful consideration. Loyalty runs deep in my veins, but I sometimes struggled with expressing my emotions openly. Kimberly, on the other hand, thrived in social settings. She had this natural warmth that drew people to her, caring deeply about others, though sometimes to her own detriment. Her one weakness was occasional insecurity about our relationship, wondering if she was enough or if I truly loved her as much as she loved me. Then there were her three closest friends, who played increasingly significant roles in our married life. Jessica, the unofficial leader of their group, had gone through a bitter divorce 2 years earlier, and carried that cynicism into every conversation about relationships. She frequently made comments like, "All men will eventually disappoint you, just prepare yourself for when Lamar shows his true colors." Amanda never stayed with anyone longer than 6 months, treating relationships like scientific experiments where she constantly tested men with little loyalty games to see how they would react. Tara was stuck in an on-again, off-again relationship with a guy who clearly did not value her, causing her to constantly compare her situation to others and crave the stability she saw in our marriage. These 3 women started as monthly brunch companions for Kimberly, but gradually increased their presence to weekly girls' nights that would often end with Kimberly coming home with new questions about our relationship. Why did I not text her more during the day? Why did I not post about her on social media? Was I really working late or seeing someone else? These questions never existed before these intensified friendships. I noticed the changes but dismissed them as harmless influence, believing our foundation was strong enough to withstand outside opinions. That changed after an argument we had following one particularly long girls' night. Kimberly confronted me about not helping enough around the house, repeatedly prefacing her complaints with "my friends think," and Jessica says a husband should. It was the first time I felt like I was fighting not just with my wife, but with an entire committee of people who were not even in the room. The pivotal moment came when Kimberly announced she was going on a weekend trip with the 3 friends to a beach house 3 hours away. I supported the idea, thinking some space might actually be good for us after weeks of increasing tension. She left Friday morning with plans to return Sunday evening. I settled in for a quiet weekend of catching up on work projects and watching sports without commentary about wasting time. Sunday afternoon found me at our dining table, laptop open, focused on finishing a presentation for work when I heard the front door open. Glancing at the clock, I realized it was only 2 in the afternoon, much earlier than the 8 p.m. return Kimberly had planned. Something felt off immediately. She walked in, still wearing sunglasses, despite being indoors, her movements strangely stiff and rehearsed. When she took off the sunglasses, I noticed her eyes were slightly red but dry, as if she had been crying but made sure to stop before arriving. She did not greet me with her usual hug or kiss on the cheek. "Lamar, we need to talk," she said, setting her weekend bag down with deliberate slowness. Her voice had an unnatural flatness to it. I closed my laptop, giving her my full attention. "Everything okay?" "The trip ended early." Instead of answering my question, she sat across from me, folded her hands on the table, and took a deep breath. "I need some space. I have been thinking a lot this weekend, and I am not sure about us anymore." The statement hung in the air between us. I studied her face, looking for clues to what had prompted this sudden declaration. "What happened? Did I do something wrong?" Kimberly shook her head, her response coming out like memorized lines. "It is not about anything specific you did. I just feel like we are growing apart. I need to find myself. I need to figure out what I really want in life." Those phrases struck me as odd. Growing apart, find herself. These were not Kimberly's words. These were recycled breakup lines, from movies or more likely from her friends' failed relationships. Jessica had used almost the exact phrase, "find myself," when she left her husband. Amanda had cycled through several boyfriends, using the growing apart explanation. Something clicked in my mind. This did not feel like a genuine desire to end our marriage. It felt like a test. The timing, after a weekend with her friends, the rehearsed quality of her delivery, the vague justifications that echoed her friends' past breakups, all pointed to one thing. This was one of Amanda's infamous loyalty tests that had now been applied to our marriage. I had two choices. I could confront her about the manipulation potentially leading to a massive fight, or I could respond in a way she clearly was not expecting. In that moment, looking at my wife of 5 years performing this act, I made my decision. I took a deep breath, keeping my expression neutral. "I see. If that is what you really want, I respect your decision. Everyone deserves to be happy, including you." The shock on Kimberly's face was immediate. Her carefully composed expression, faltered eyes widening slightly. This was clearly not the reaction she had anticipated. She seemed to be waiting for something more, perhaps tears, or begging, or anger. When none came, she stumbled slightly over her next words. "So, you are okay with this?" Just like that, I maintained my calm demeanor while my mind raced. If this was a test, she expected me to fight for our relationship, to prove my love through desperation. But that kind of manipulation deserved neither reward nor recognition. "I am not okay with it, but I am not going to try to change your mind about how you feel. Our relationship should not be something I have to convince you to stay in. I will sleep in the guest room tonight while we figure out next steps. I think some actual space might be good for both of us to gain perspective." I stood up, my movements deliberate and controlled, despite the hurt and anger building inside me. Kimberly remained frozen in her chair, her script clearly derailed. As I headed toward our bedroom to pack an overnight bag, I heard her following a few steps behind. "Wait, Lamar. I did not mean we need to separate right away. I just wanted to talk about our issues." I turned to look at her. "What issues specifically? You have not mentioned any actual problems, just vague feelings." I continued packing a few clothes and toiletries into a small duffel bag. Looking at her increasingly panicked expression, I knew my instinct about this being a test was correct. With my bag packed, I pulled out my phone and called my brother, while Kimberly watched, her face growing paler by the minute. "Hey Mark, mind if I crash at your place tonight? Kimberly and I are taking some space. I will explain when I get there." "Thanks, man." I ended the call and turned to my increasingly distressed wife. "I think this space will be good. Give you time to really think about what you want without me influencing your decision. If our marriage is truly what you want to end, we should do it respectfully." Kimberly stepped forward, her composure completely shattered now. Lamar, wait. Maybe we should talk more about this. I shook my head. You have made your feelings clear. I think we both need time to process. I will check in tomorrow about practical arrangements. With that, I walked past her down the stairs and out to my car. As I pulled out of the driveway, I glanced in the rearview mirror to see Kimberly standing in the doorway, phone already pressed to her ear, likely calling one of her friends to report that her test had backfired spectacularly. The last thing I saw before turning the corner was her free hand gesturing frantically as she spoke. My brother Mark lived in a small apartment about 20 minutes from our house. When I arrived and explained the situation, he immediately offered his support, but also some surprisingly insightful advice. So, you think this whole breakup thing is some kind of test her friends put her up to? He asked, handing me a beer as we sat on his living room couch. Almost certainly. You should have seen how rehearsed it seemed, and none of the reasons she gave were specific to our relationship. It was like she was reading from a script written by someone who does not even know us. Mark took a thoughtful sip of his beer. You know, I think you handled it right. If you had reacted emotionally, begged her to stay, or gotten angry, you would have played right into their game. But now she has to deal with the consequences of this stupid test. My phone had been buzzing consistently since I left the house. I finally checked it to find 12 text messages and 7 missed calls from Kimberly. The messages showed a clear progression. Lamar, can we please talk about this? I did not mean you should leave tonight. Please come home so we can discuss this properly. Why are you not answering my calls? I am sorry. Please come back. This is not what I wanted. Please call me back. I made a mistake. I responded with a single message. I think we both need tonight to think. I will call you tomorrow. Her reply was immediate. Please come home. I need to explain. I put the phone down, deciding that letting her sit with the consequences of her actions overnight was necessary. Mark and I spent the evening watching basketball and talking about everything except my marriage situation. It was the mental break I needed. The next morning, a mutual friend texted me. Just saw Kimberly with her friends at Riverside Cafe. She looked really upset. Jessica was doing most of the talking and looked angry. Thought you should know. After 48 hours at Mark's place, during which Kimberly's messages had grown increasingly desperate, I decided it was time to return home and address the situation directly. I had given her enough time to realize the gravity of playing games with our marriage. When I pulled into our driveway, I noticed 3 additional cars parked on the street that I recognized as belonging to Jessica, Amanda, and Tara. So Kimberly had called in reinforcements. This was going to be interesting. I entered my own home to find 4 women sitting in my living room. Kimberly jumped up immediately upon seeing me, her eyes red and swollen from crying. Before she could speak, Jessica stood up, arms crossed defensively. Well, look who finally decided to show up. Jessica said, her tone acidic. You know you really failed this test. A man who truly loves his wife would fight for their relationship, not just walk away. Amanda nodded in agreement. A real man would have begged for another chance. Your reaction just proves you do not care enough about Kimberly. Tara remained seated, looking uncomfortable with the entire situation, her eyes fixed on the carpet. I set my bag down slowly, taking in the scene before me. So this was a test, I asked, my voice deliberately calm despite the anger building inside me. Would someone like to explain to me why testing your spouse with a fake breakup is considered acceptable behavior in a committed marriage? Kimberly started crying again. I did not mean for it to go this far. I just wanted to see what I interrupted, to see if I would grovel and beg. When you threatened our entire relationship based on nothing, who came up with this idea? The silence that followed was telling. Finally, Amanda spoke up. We have all done this with our boyfriends. It shows who really values the relationship. The ones who fight for you are the ones worth keeping. I looked at each woman in turn. So you regularly manipulate the men in your lives with fake breakups to test their devotion, and you thought this was appropriate to bring into a 5-year marriage? Jessica stepped forward defensively. We were just looking out for Kimberly. Women need to protect each other. Men show their true colors when they think they are losing something. I nodded slowly. You know what, you are right about one thing. This did reveal true colors, just not mine. It showed that my wife would rather test me than talk to me, and that she values the opinions of people who encourage manipulation over the trust we have built for years. But, Jessica began. I held up my hand. When you test someone without their knowledge or consent, you are not looking for truth. You are looking for control and reassurance at the expense of trust. That is not love. That is insecurity, dressed up as relationship wisdom. The room fell silent. Tara finally looked up, meeting my eyes with what appeared to be a mix of guilt and respect. Jessica grabbed her purse. Come on, Amanda. We do not need to listen to this. Kimberly, call us when you are ready to talk. She headed for the door with Amanda following close behind. To my surprise, Tara remained seated. After a moment, she stood up and addressed both of us. I am really sorry about all this. I told them it was a bad idea from the start. She turned to Kimberly. Call me later if you want to talk. With that, she walked out, closing the door quietly behind her. When it was just Kimberly and me, the full weight of what had happened seemed to crash down on her. She collapsed onto the couch, sobbing uncontrollably with embarrassment and regret. I waited until Kimberly's sobs subsided before sitting across from her, giving her space while maintaining eye contact. The distance between us felt much greater than the few feet separating our chairs. Why, I asked simply. After 5 years together, why would you think this was necessary? Kimberly wiped her eyes, her makeup long since cried away. Jessica kept saying that men get too comfortable in marriage. She said I needed to know if you would fight for us if things got hard. Then Amanda suggested the test. She said all men either cheat or think about cheating, and this would show your true commitment level. I tried to process this explanation, and you believed them over everything we have built together. She looked down at her hands. They kept pointing out little things like how you work late sometimes, or how you do not post about me on social media, or how you sometimes forget to text back right away. They said these were warning signs. So, instead of asking me about these concerns, you decided to pretend to end our marriage. Do you realize how broken that logic is? Kimberly nodded miserably. I know it was wrong. I got caught up in their thinking. Jessica is so confident about these things, and she kept saying that if you really loved me, you would react a certain way. I took a deep breath, fighting to keep my voice steady. The real test of love is not how someone reacts to manipulation. It's the daily choice to be honest, to communicate directly, to work through problems together. What you did broke trust, which is the foundation of everything we have. The weight of my words seemed to hit her fully. I never meant to break your trust. I thought it would just be a moment where you would say you could not live without me, and then I would tell you it was a test, and we would laugh about it. I did not expect you to actually leave. That is the problem with games like this. You cannot predict how they will end, but they almost always end badly. What would have happened if I had reacted the way you wanted? Would you have felt good about our relationship being built on a foundation where you need to manipulate me to feel secure? She shook her head. No, I see that now. We sat in silence for several minutes before I spoke again. I cannot just go back to normal after this. I need to know that you respect me enough to come to me directly with concerns. I need to know that your friends are not going to continue having this kind of influence over our marriage. Kimberly looked up, determination, replacing the shame in her eyes. I am going to distance myself from Jessica and Amanda. What they encouraged me to do was toxic. Tara actually tried to talk me out of it, said it would backfire. She was right. I nodded. That is a start. But we also need professional help to rebuild what this broke. I think we should look into couples counseling. Surprisingly, she agreed immediately. Yes, I want to fix this. I want to learn how to be better. I am so sorry, Lamar. I almost destroyed everything because I listened to people who do not even have successful relationships themselves. In the following weeks, we began the slow process of rebuilding trust. Our first counseling session was difficult but necessary, with the therapist helping us establish healthier communication patterns and boundaries with outside influences. Kimberly stopped attending the weekly girls' nights, much to Jessica and Amanda's apparent displeasure. They tried calling and texting for a while, but eventually gave up when Kimberly maintained her distance. Tara, on the other hand, reached out separately to both of us to apologize again. She confessed that she had been questioning her own friendship with Jessica and Amanda for months, seeing how their relationship advice often seemed designed to create problems rather than solve them. We eventually welcomed her back into our lives, this time with clearer boundaries. 6 months after the incident, our marriage had grown stronger in many ways. The counseling gave us tools to discuss difficult topics without fear or manipulation. Kimberly had developed new friendships with couples we both enjoyed spending time with. Most importantly, she had learned to come to me directly when insecurities arose rather than letting others interpret my actions. Just over a year later, we received the news that Kimberly was pregnant with our first child. As we prepared the nursery together, painting walls and assembling furniture, she paused one afternoon and wrapped her arms around me from behind. "Thank you for not giving up on us when you had every reason to," she whispered. I turned to face her, placing a hand gently on her growing belly. Sometimes the biggest tests are not the ones we plan, but how we recover from our mistakes. You chose us over toxic influences. That showed me everything I needed to know. Looking back now, I realized that what seemed like the potential end of our marriage actually became the catalyst for something much stronger. We learned that relationships need protection not just from external threats, but sometimes from well-meaning friends who project their own failures onto others. We learned that trust once broken can be rebuilt, but only through consistent honesty and mutual respect. Most importantly, we learned that love is not proven through dramatic gestures or responses to tests. It is demonstrated in the quiet, daily choice to communicate openly, to assume the best of each other, and to face challenges as a united team rather than opponents. Have you ever had someone try to influence your relationship in negative ways? How did you protect your relationship from outside interference? Share your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button, subscribe to hear more stories about relationship challenges overcome, and share this with someone who might be dealing with similar influences in their life. Thank you for listening. And remember, the strongest relationships are not the ones without problems, but those where both people choose each other every single day, through both easy and difficult times.